You're watching Beyond 100 Days with Nifemi Oguntoye. It's World Press Freedom Day, dedicated this year to the importance of journalism as well as freedom of expression in the context of the current global environmental crisis. Here in Nigeria, particularly in Abuja, journalists at this year's commemoration honor their fallen colleagues who lost their lives in the pursuit of truth. We have details of that report.
The United Nations General Assembly recognizes the critical role of a free press in fostering democracy, transparency and accountability by formally proclaiming the 3rd of May as World Press Freedom Day. This annual observance serves as a global platform to highlight the fundamental importance of press freedom and to remind governments worldwide of their obligation to safeguard and promote the rights to freedom of expression as enshrined in Article 19 of the 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights.
Journalists for environmental crisis, what does that mean?
In Nigeria, the path to press freedom is different, full of twists and turns. The press have faced censorship, challenges and occasional triumphs.
We are coming from the military era. If you want to compare our experience during the military era and our experience in the last 20 years or so, you will say, okay, we are doing very well. Because for those of us who were around during the military era, it's like a suicide. You know, practicing journalism, you can leave your house in the morning, you are not sure of coming back.
Journalists still believe that press freedom remains under threat, often masked by claims of national security concerns, as they emphasize the critical need for the federal government to safeguard press freedom.
In the countries that is under a democracy, we are not saying that we are saying that nobody is above the law. Even journalists are not above the law. But we are saying that in determining who is wrong, who is right, the place to go is a competent court of law.
Government really has to rise to the occasion in this regard, mostly by enacting laws that could ensure that journalists are not in any way endangered species.
We need to have more advocacy talks on it, allow journalists to carry out their daily activity without intimidation or fear.
Touching on the 2024 theme, Press for the Planet, Journalism in the Face of Environmental Crisis, respondents emphasized the vital role of journalists in addressing environmental challenges.
The whole idea is that journalists has a responsibility to continue to create that awareness. They have that responsibility to continue to hold government accountable to people, government accountable to the people, so that they can begin, so that they can continue to design good policies and programs for in an attempt to reduce the environmental crisis.
And see how hot the environment is lately, but journalists are doing so much in enlightening the public on the situation at hand and on how we can actually mitigate this.
Section 22 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria states that the press shall be free at all times to uphold the accountability and responsibility of the government to the people. And if the federal government does not abide by this rule, even sharing information on environmental crisis will not be possible. Uloma Oyemachi, TVC News, Abuja.
Well, unlike what the journalists in that report said, the 2024 World Press Freedom Index by Reporters Without Borders, RSF, ranked Nigeria 112th out of 180 countries where journalists are regularly monitored, attacked and arbitrarily arrested. Now, that figure is lower than the 123rd position the country had last year. But this year's rating places Nigeria as one of West Africa's most dangerous and difficult countries for journalists. And that's perhaps a good place to start. And who's best to discuss this than my assignment editor, Asuko James, who is my guest on the show today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Nifemi.
Okay, I think we've had this conversation before on Journalist Hangout. So, what do you think about this report? I mean, one would naturally think that it's getting better, particularly when you hear from older journalists who have been in the industry for long. They will tell you what it was like under a military rule, for instance. But Reporters Without Borders is saying that we are still one of the most dangerous countries to be a journalist.
Yeah, it depends on the metrics that they actually use on it. Because if you look at it, Nigeria journalists really are not being attacked per se. You know, they're not being hunted, just like when we had the military rule. You know, so now you can, you know, report, you can do your work without being attacked or being arrested, provided you follow the rules and the principles. The rules and the principles, just being fair, try to balance your story, which most times is usually very difficult, because once you want to balance your story that involves another party that is a government official, it becomes very difficult. And even when we have legislation or the laws like the Freedom of Information Act, you know, it becomes even difficult for people who you are supposed to get information from for you to balance your report. So sometimes, because journalists we have the responsibility of holding people into account, we are always in a hurry to go out to press whatever we have.
But I want you to think about it very well, Asiko, because you've been in charge of assigning reports for many years in TVC. Are you saying that our reporters have never really been harassed by the powers that be? Maybe you want to tell a story and then they say no. No, they just shut it down.
No, they have. You know, I won't come here and say they have not. They have. But at the end of the day, we try to make those who are harassing them to understand that we have a duty, and our duty is to inform the public.
Indeed.
Because if we don't do our jobs, then it means we don't need to be on TV. You know, every journalist has the responsibility of trying to ensure that there's fairness, there's balance.
Indeed.
You know, and try to be objective as much. Even though we know in those three pillars, there seems to be, is relative. Indeed. You understand? It's relative. But my team or my reporters who go out and they are being harassed, the first thing I usually ask, what was the problem? And how did you react to the problem? Because once you know, if a journalist is being harassed, okay, and it does not in any way try to attack back, but try to be calm, you know, try to be calm, then you don't have your own is, you are safe. You are safe, you know. So in every hostile situation, and that is where I usually tell my people, when once you go and you want to be attacked, try to be calm. And then at the end of the day, you try to explain to the people who are trying to attack you, because I have once been attacked before during an election.
Tell me about it.
You know, it was a mob, scene. But at the end of the day, I was able to calm things around me and tell them, guys, we are here not to come and spoil whatever you guys are doing. We are just here to come and report. And at the end of the day, I was happy, because you know what? I was speaking the language that they understood. It wasn't about me going there to do gra-gra. No, I didn't go there to just go and be, no. I just told them I'm here to just do a duty, and I'm going to leave here in one piece. And perhaps it was the way I actually, spoke with them. That is why they actually left me. So I think journalists, I know some journalists some people don't like listening. When once you come and you have this enemy, you're an enemy to them, they want to attack you. You know, but the first thing every journalist should also learn is how to be safe. When once you see that the situation or the environment is unsafe and you have gotten whatever you need to get, it's better you leave. Because don't be the story. Because that is what my bosses used to tell me. You know, yes, you might go for the story, but don't be the story.
You know, I think it was George Orwell who said journalism is printing something that someone doesn't want printed.
Yes.
He now said everything else is public relations. And I like that quote, because most times when I'm on my show and then I have a guest, there are times when the guest himself is telling you, I don't want to talk about this. I don't want to talk about that. And then I'm thinking, that's PR. I should be able to ask you any questions. Then you can decide to say, I'm not willing to answer or not. And it's interesting how over the years I've seen that most times asking those difficult questions is what stands you out on the job.
Yes.
And then you find out that the moment you ask a question, your guest sits up. You know, you're having a conversation with a big politician and you feel so comfortable until you start asking the very difficult questions.
And you put them on the edge.
I think you put them on the edge. The interesting thing is that as much as the journalist is also not necessarily being antagonistic, you know, there are colleagues of ours who just want to probe. There's a difference between asking questions and probing, you know. But if you ask what people want ask, it's left for the politicians to now
of course.
you know, provide the answer
the thing
or
is, ask, as a journalist, first make the person you're interviewing first feel relaxed. After that, you can go ahead, make him your friend. You know, it's just an act of interviewing. You know, first make him your friend, then from there, once you start to ask those difficult questions, the person will now be, okay, this is not my enemy, but I can answer.
But I can answer.
You know, at least he will be able to give you what you want. It might not be 100%, but something that will make headline, you know, for you. So, but what I've noticed these days is that some people just want to go to attack. Why? Because they just want to get engagement on social media, because that is where the new journalism is going to, you know. So, and that is why most people that want to interview would always tell you, this is the one I want you to answer, or I want you to ask. Do not go to this other side. They start giving you the places to go to and not to go, you know. And that is not journalism, because just like you said, it's more PR.
That is why that's why I like live shows, you know. The moment we are live, I can ask you anything. But I'd like us to consider the legal angle to this, because the Constitution, as we speak, protects freedom of speech, freedom of expression and opinion. But there are also many laws that make it possible to obstruct the work of journalism. When you consider laws, you know, our anti-terrorism laws, state secret, cybercrime, the penal code as we speak continues to treat defamation as a crime. And there is still the challenge of access to information like you mentioned earlier. Do you agree that the National Assembly has more to do in this regard? Even though, after all, they're politicians and
yes,
they might not be willing to give so much power to journalists.
No, of course. The National Assembly, our lawmakers know what they do. They know that if they are giving you everything, then they don't need to be there anymore. The only thing they will just do is start to amend, you know. And I think they have a lot to do, because for there to be democracy in words and in deed, you need a free press.
Absolutely.
You understand? Okay, so, and if there are some entrances that will make anybody, any journalist not to do his work, then you are heading towards autocracy. You know, so the best thing is for our National Assembly to look at those laws. You've mentioned some. The cybercrime, for instance. There has been discussion about, you know, the regulation of social media, for instance.
Absolutely.
You know, and even the issue about defamation. What will make me or a journalist, you know, go ahead and defame somebody? And what are the laws that would not, you know, they need to create laws that will make me, you know, feel comfortable when I'm doing my job.
Absolutely.
I'm safe, because that is a major thing. We have laws that are open-ended in one side and they are closed-ended in the other side. So sometimes we just do our job and we don't know. At the end of the day, you just get a lawsuit, you know. So and our National Assembly has a lot of work to do. We know we have chairmen, Committee of Information, Communication and all that. They can sit down with the Nigerian Press Council, look at all these laws and try to harmonize it so that we'll be able to have a press that will make our democracy stronger.
I know that politics is public trust, so, you know, public officials should be willing to answer questions and reveal information when they are asked. When we return, we'll talk about brown envelopes. Very interesting angle to the story. Stay with us, everyone. 26 more days to the first anniversary of the Tinubu administration. We're keeping track on that, and in the coming days, we'll be exploring many of his policies vis-a-vis his campaign promises as well. Asoko James, assignment editor with TVC News, is here with me in the studio as we talk on WordPress Freedom Day. So there's the economic context to all of this. Apart from the strong perception that he who pays the piper dictates the tune, the standard welfare available to journalists in this part of the world is also a key issue, and it makes many of our colleagues vulnerable to what is called the brown envelope syndrome in the local parlance. What's your evaluation of this? How much of this do you think has impacted the quality of work done in our space?
I mean, it has really, really impacted negatively on our work, because most journalists, I can say close to 80% of those who are working as journalists are poorly paid. And it is not the political realms, as in nobody is attached to it, and then they are doing their job well, and they are, fantastically paid. Let me use that word. Not when I mean fantastic, that is, they are being paid salaries, they have HMO, they have allowances, attached to it, and so many other things that will make a journalist very, very comfortable in such a way that when once he goes to an assignment, and when they are saying, come and write your name, he's out of the door. He's not waiting for anything, you understand? And there are so many today that you will see them, everybody shouting about them, talking about them. At the end of the day, if you go deep down, they still survive with kickbacks, one way or the other, either from government agencies, politicians, and all that. So it's a very difficult, terrain and difficult profession right now, because it's not easy. I don't know the last time you read a newspaper. Back then, I remember Guardian, I'm sorry to say, Guardian on Tuesday used to be as voluminous as big, like this, talking about putting adverts, vacancies and all that. Go and buy Guardian on Tuesday. It's as flat as anything, It's like one loaf of bread now. You understand? So it means that people no longer are not reading newspapers, they are going online. And it's also affecting journalists who are going all out every day trying to see how they can, bring stories and find themselves accountable, trying to, because the thing is, if you are putting other people into account, you also have to put yourself into account. You must be accountable to yourself. So responsibility is two-way. So while you are asking for responsibility from the government, you're also asking responsibility from yourself. So, but responsibility in quotes will not pay your salary. So I'm just trying to be try to be as realistic as possible, because I know that it is very difficult for a journalist in Nigeria to survive. It's very difficult. Don't let anybody deceive you. It's not easy being a journalist in Nigeria, especially the welfare. It's difficult. A journalist wants to go out, he needs money for him to go out, because the company might not provide, the right tools or the logistics for the person. It takes only some very few, journalists who are not attached in any way for them to get grants, for them to do their story and not get kickbacks or get corrupted in any way, So I think that is where the Nigerian Guild of Editors...
And you're saying that if we don't fix this challenge, we cannot get the quality journalism that we're all requiring.
It's a major challenge. It's a major challenge. We have so many fantastic journalists, but if you go deep down, okay, if you know what they are going through, they might not tell you. You can go for assignment to see them, they are looking all happy, but deep down, they are not happy. Because sometimes some of them, before they pay their small salary, is like, some are even being owed, but they are still coming to work. Okay? They are being owed, they are coming to work. Why? Because of the passion that they have for the job. But at the end of the month, nothing goes home. So how do they survive? How do they survive? Is either they, go ahead with the brown envelope for them to survive, or they just keep doing the job. If there's any other deal, they can do. And when I mean any other, maybe advertising and all that, and somebody tells them, write a book concerning an autograph and things like that, or biography, you know, they will do that, and then they will make money from it. But that can come once in a year, because it's not easy to just say you want to write a book every month, you know. So it's a lot of work, and is affecting this profession. And I think that is where the Guild of Editors, the Nigerian Union of Journalists, and everybody that is involved can come together and see how the welfare of journalists can be looked into seriously. This is not about, oh, I'm the best. You can be the best today, but what of tomorrow? You know, that is the biggest problem now. I know of newspapers who were virtually the best in the past, and people started leaving. Why? Because they were not paying well. They went into another one, and that one started having problems. You know, at the end of the day, keep seeing a journalist moving from one place to the other, one place. At the end of the day, they will just have to find somewhere for them just to survive.
We have to go.
It shouldn't be in this profession. This profession should be something that will be sustainable. You'll be able to keep yourself so that once you are mentally fit, you'll be able to write and tell stories and hold the government to account.
Fantastic way you've put it. We don't have time, but you talked about social media earlier, and it's perhaps one of the biggest challenge to mainstream broadcasting. There's a lot of citizen journalism now taking place online. And I remember, I think it was the 9th National Assembly that attempted to gag the social media. The Chief of Staff to the President talked about it earlier on in the year as well. I think it's an ongoing conversation. But then, Nigeria, we haven't come to that space where we can begin to limit what goes on that platform. It will be given too much power to the people in power.
Of course.
Do you agree?
Oh, yeah, of course. So for now, I think the way we are doing it, we want to misuse it. You know, we can regulate it a bit, but not entirely. That's why I'm saying the stakeholders can sit down, because the same people who are citizen journalists or want to, because if you notice, most of the online newspapers you are seeing, they are ones in the newsroom like us.
Absolutely.
You know, before they went out. So they are the ones that will couch a good law for them to be able to work on that space. Because right now, everybody wants to be citizen journalists. Anything they see, they just want to throw there, you know, and then it becomes a very big problem for all of us.
Asuko James, assignment editor, TVC News, thank you for joining us on the program this evening.
Thank you so much.
And happy International World Press Freedom Day.
Today's our day.
It is indeed our day.